The excavation site on Thraxus 7 hummed with the low vibration of scanning equipment, but Lyra Venn barely noticed. Her attention was fixed on the massive bronze bell suspended in the center of the chamber, its surface covered in glyphs that predated every known civilization in this sector. The artifact hung from chains so ancient they had fused with the stone ceiling, yet the bell itself showed no signs of corrosion. Remarkable preservation, Lyra muttered, adjusting her scanner. The readings made no sense. The metal wasn't bronze at all. It was something her equipment couldn't identify, something that shouldn't exist according to the periodic table she'd memorized back on Earth. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber, and Lyra's hand instinctively moved to the plasma cutter at her belt. She'd been warned about the local fauna. Thraxus 7 was home to the Valkor, apex predators that had evolved intelligence and claimed this world as their sacred ground. The excavation team had been granted access only after months of negotiations, and even then, the Valkor insisted on observing every human activity. From the shadows, Koran emerged. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his obsidian scales catching the portable lights like fractured midnight. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his elongated skull, fixed on Lyra with an intensity that would have sent most humans scrambling. But Lyra had worked on 17 different worlds, encountered 42 sentient species, and she'd learned that running only excited predators. The bell, Koran's voice was like grinding stone, each word deliberate. You study it still. It's what I was sent here to do, Lyra replied, keeping her voice steady. She'd noticed that Koran appreciated directness. Your people know something about it. The way your cubs react. As if summoned by her words, 3 juvenile Valkor prowled into the chamber. They were Koran's offspring, each already the size of a terrestrial tiger, their scales still showing the iridescent patterns of youth. They circled the bell at a distance, hissing and clicking in their native tongue. Lyra had observed this behavior for 3 days now. The young Valkor were drawn to the bell, yet they refused to approach within 5 meters of it. They would pace, growl, and eventually retreat, their distress obvious even across species barriers. They fear the old sound, Koran said, moving closer to stand beside Lyra. It was the first time he'd voluntarily approached her, as did their grandsires and their grandsires before them. The bell has hung in this temple for longer than our history's record. None have touched it in living memory. Why? Lyra's scientific curiosity overrode her caution. What happens if someone does? Koran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Lyra had learned indicated deep thought. The legends say the bell calls to the first ones, those who made us, those who made all of us. His massive head turned to regard her. But legends are for cubs. Adults know better than to wake what should sleep. Lyra studied the bell again. Her scans had detected a hollow interior and something suspended within. A clapper, presumably. The glyphs on the surface weren't Valkor in origin. They were older, much older. She'd seen similar markings on exactly 2 other worlds, both in human-controlled space, both sites predating humanity's emergence from their homeworld by millions of years. Someone put this here, she said, thinking aloud. Someone wanted it to be rung. Then let them return and ring it themselves, Koran growled. We will not. One of the cubs, bolder than its siblings, crept closer to the bell. It extended a clawed hand, trembling, reaching toward the ancient metal. The other cubs shrieked warnings. The young Valkor's hand came within a centimeter of the bell's surface, and it fled, scrambling over its siblings in its panic to escape the chamber. Lyra made her decision. She'd spent 15 years studying humanity's place in the galaxy, examining ruins and relics that suggested humans were latecomers to a much older game. Every instinct she'd honed told her this bell was important, a piece of the puzzle she'd been assembling world by world. I'm going to ring it, she announced. The chamber fell silent. Even the scanning equipment seemed to hold its breath. Koran's scales shifted, standing erect in a threat display that made him appear even larger. You will not, he commanded. With respect, Koran, I wasn't asking permission. Lyra walked toward the bell, her boots echoing on the stone floor. Behind her, she heard Koran's claws scrape against rock, heard the cubs' frightened calls. But she also heard something else. A humming that seemed to come from the bell itself, growing stronger as she approached. Her hand closed around the chain. The metal was warm, almost alive beneath her palm. She pulled. The sound that emerged wasn't a ring. It was a roar. a cascading wave of harmonics that seemed to bypass her ears and resonate directly in her bones, her cells, her DNA. The glyphs on the bell blazed with golden light, and Lyra saw them for what they truly were: genetic code, instructions written in a universal language that preceded all known civilizations. Behind her, Corin and his cubs threw back their heads and answered the bell with roars of their own. But these weren't sounds of fear or aggression. They were songs, ancient melodies that the Valkor had forgotten they knew. Corin's voice harmonized with the bell's resonance, and in that moment Lyra understood. The bell wasn't a warning or a weapon. It was a reminder. As the sound faded, Corin approached her, his 4 eyes now reflecting something that looked like respect. His cubs gathered around the bell, no longer afraid, their scales shimmering with patterns Lyra had never seen before, patterns that matched the glyphs on the bell's surface. "Your kind does not fear the old sound," Corin observed, his tone holding a mixture of wonder and something that might have been admiration. Lyra smiled, still feeling the bell's vibration in her chest. "My kind spent most of our history ringing bells we didn't understand. Sometimes to mark time, sometimes to warn of danger, sometimes just to see what would happen." She placed her hand on the bell once more. "We've always believed that some sounds are meant to be heard." One of the cubs approached cautiously, then pressed its scaled head against the bell. The others followed, and Corin watched his offspring rediscover something their species had lost to fear. "Perhaps," Corin rumbled, "that is why the first ones left humans to wake last. Someone had to be foolish enough or brave enough to ring the bells they left behind." Lyra laughed, and the sound echoed through the ancient chamber, mixing with the lingering resonance of the bell and the cubs' triumphant roars. In that moment, surrounded by alien predators on a world light years from Earth, she'd never felt more human. And somewhere in the depths of the galaxy, other bells were waiting to be rung.